What is up, everybody? Happy Sunday. More importantly, happy game day. Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack-A-Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can follow the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. It is Packers game day. Packers Vikings, Lambeau Field, Week 4, 3-0 versus 2-1. Jordan Love returns. What more could you possibly want in life? We're going to break down the game in its entirety. I cannot wait to dig into this one because there's a lot of fun stuff to discuss. Before we get there, shout out to our brand new Pack-A-Day Podcast YouTube member, Sandy Guntharp. Sandy, thank you so much for signing up. If you have not yet checked out those memberships, today would be a great day to do so. And then, of course, we've also got our Luigi's Pizza player to watch in this game. I don't always like going with the obvious choice. It's not very fun, but in this one, it has to be Jordan Love. Jordan Love coming back from injury, going against this Brian Flores defense. Is he rusty? How good is he going to be? Can he play the entirety of the game? What does he look like? Like, all of these things are going to be very important. And while the quarterback position, always massively important, especially in a game like this, it is going to be amped up, I think, even more with Jordan coming back from injury and going against this particular brand of defense. So our player to watch in this one may be a little bit obvious, but sometimes the obvious answer is the right answer, and that is going to be Jordan Love. Of course, make sure to follow Luigi's Pizza on Twitter at Luigi's Pizza, LuigesPizza. And of course, they are giving away a case of frozen pizzas every week that the Packers win. We will get that announced on Twitter later today, so keep an eye out for that. And then, of course, if the Packers win this game, all you have to do is follow Luigi's Pizza on Twitter, follow the Pack-A-Day Podcast, and tweet Luigi's Victory Monday, and you will be entered to win in that contest. So again, that winner will be announced on Twitter later today. Let's get into our full breakdown. And of course, we have to start. I know we kind of spoiled it a little bit with our Luigi's Pizza, but Jordan Love is back. Now, there was a little bit of interesting verbiage when this was announced by Rappaport and Schefter. Per Adam Schefter, quote, Jordan Love is expected to be active. Per Ian Rappaport, Jordan Love is expected to return to the lineup. Neither person said Jordan Love will start. It was just an interesting sort of context. Now, per Dyer Carragher, this was what he dug up. The last player that Adam Schefter said, quote, expected to be active, at least from a quarterback standpoint, was Teddy Bridgewater when he was active but ended up backing up Skylar Thompson. So it's, again, just very interesting the way that they put that. And there was, I think, some people reading into it of like, does this mean Jordan's going to be the backup in this game? That he's going to be active but maybe not the guy? Like, there were definitely question marks. Now, since that point, Tom Silverstein reported that Jordan Love will start. Bill Huber reported that Jordan Love will start. And I expect Jordan Love to start in this game. I think the question will be, does he play the entirety of the game? Is there any Malik Willis? And I'm not talking about you bring him in for just a play or a package of, because, in general, if Jordan was entirely healthy or anything like that. But if Jordan is not 100%, do you get Malik Willis? Now, I know Diana Rossini from The Athletic threw that possibility out there that we could see Love and Willis in this one. This seems still weird to me. If Jordan's not 100%, do you need to rush him back for this one? I mean, I understand the value of this game. Do not get me wrong. This is a massive divisional game, and this is a very difficult defense to go against if you're maybe not 100% in the know with all the checks at the line and all the different options that you can get yourself into. Not having Jordan would be a significant difference in this game. So I understand it, but if Jordan's not 100%, going against a defense that blitzes a lot, that mobility is very important, I don't know. That maybe is not the right decision in that one. It's tough to say, and I trust the medical staff and Matt LaFleur and the Packers organization as a whole to make sure that they're not putting Jordan into harm's way. But if he is, we kind of figure, I guess, he's not going to be 100% to some capacity. Do you start Malik Willis? And then again, do you make Jordan the backup in that situation? It's clear that Jordan's going to start, and we can probably put the rest of it to bed and we don't have to worry about it all that much. But if you feel like he can't do everything and that you have to bring in Malik for some plays, that to me is probably a little bit more telling of, hey, maybe give it one more week. Now we'll see. Maybe he just goes out there, looks great. Maybe there's no Malik Willis whatsoever. And maybe we just get a really good Jordan Love performance, and that would be great. I'm just intrigued. I'm intrigued to see what he looks like. That's going to be the big thing, right? And we'll talk about that in our 12 keys to the game. But the great news here, however you want to read it, however you want to, parse the words that were tweeted out by other people, Jordan Love is going to be the starter. He's back. That's the exciting aspect. And we're going to get to see this really, really fun matchup between two very fun teams. And, hopefully we can get through this game without Jordan's leg being any sort of issue. And he can just, kind of continue to get better week after week after week from here on out. And that would be the very positive takeaway from this game. Now, the one thing we do know for certain is Sean Clifford was not activated in this one. So they feel good enough with Jordan that they only went with 2 QBs. Like there was not we better bring up Sean just in case. Or what if Jordan goes into the pregame prep and doesn't feel right or something like that. They felt good enough about this decision that they did not even call up Sean Clifford. So that would seem to be a pretty good sign that they have faith in Jordan overall in some capacity to some extent. So Malik Willis and Jordan Love will be the only 2 QBs. And you might say, well, yeah, but Sean Clifford can still be the emergency third. No, he cannot. Not unless he's on the active roster. He is not on the active roster, so he cannot be the emergency third quarterback. So it will just be Jordan Love and Malik Willis at quarterback in this game for Green Bay. And hopefully just Jordan Love, right? Like we don't have to see Malik Willis. No, we're all excited to see Malik Willis because of what he's done the last couple weeks. But in an ideal world, you just have a really great version of Jordan Love in this one. The 2 players that were activated, we talked about, predicting who would be activated yesterday. Robert Rochelle was the easy one. And then the thought was, is it going to be Sean Clifford or is it going to be Kalen King? And it ended up being neither. They did not activate Clifford and they did not activate Kalen King, They did activate, however, Kamal Hadden, another cornerback, not named Kalen King. Now, what we talked about with why potentially not Kalen King yesterday was because he's primarily a slot corner, and you probably don't need that. Because if something comes to fruition where you need another slot guy, you've got Javon Bullard who can kick in there. You have, obviously, of course, Corey Ballantyne who can kick in there. Keyshawn already can play there. And then maybe even an Evan Williams, right? So you have options on the roster already where you can put somebody else in the slot. What you really want depth for is the outside corner position. And that is where Kamal Hadden comes into play a little bit more, where he is more of a outside corner. Now, maybe they just like Hadden more than Kalen King. That's possible as well. But Hadden will give them that extra depth at the outside corner position. Now, what else does that mean? They activated 2 corners off the practice squad, Rochelle and Hadden. In all likelihood, that probably means that Carrington Valentine for sure and probably Jair Alexander do not play in this game, which is a problem when you're going against Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Now, we talked about last week and the week before that with Jordan Love of, hey, even if Jordan, could potentially play, you may want to call up Sean Clifford just in case you do get to that situation where you go and try out Jordan before the game and he has the injury or maybe something flares up or it's not good to go. So you can still have Sean active for game day. Like it gives you that extra opportunity. This could still be the case where they wanted to activate the extra corners in case they get to the pregame warmups and both Jair and Valentine are unable to go so that they can put them on the active roster where you can't call up guys on game day. So you have to do it on Saturday. So I'm not saying there's been nothing definitive. I'm recording this very early on Sunday morning, and there was no Schefter tweet or Rappaport tweet saying Jair was or was not going to play. But my guess is that this is probably one where Valentine and Jair do not play, and the 2 call-ups at corner are probably pretty telling, and you can kind of glean exactly what's going to happen with the inactive list at the cornerback position because of those 2 call-ups. So they're going to need to deactivate 7 players in total. So Jordan Morgan is out. We know that. He's going to be deactivated. Travis Glover has been inactive every single week. That's an easy one. Colby Wooden's been the last 2 weeks and did not play at all the first week when he was active. That's probably another easy one. Brenton Cox continues to be deactivated. I would expect him to be another one on the list. Remember that they have Aaron Mosby ahead of him and they have 4 other edge rushers. So another player at that position probably doesn't make any sense. And then Jair Alexander, Carrington Valentine, and then Kitano Ladapo was deactivated the last couple weeks as well. So my hypothesis of who will not be active in this one: Jordan Morgan, Travis Glover, Colby Wooden, Brenton Cox, Jair Alexander, Carrington Valentine, and Kitano Ladapo. And of course, I would love to be wrong about Jair Alexander, but it seems to be trending in that direction. All right, let's get into everything to watch in this one. I've got 12 things per usual that I'm going to be watching and I think will ultimately decide this game. And of course, number one, we touched base on it a little bit already, is the effectiveness of Jordan Love. This is not just, I'll say it this way. There's a lot that goes into this, right? Week one plays weird, bizarro, slippery field, Brazil international game. Doesn't have his greatest game. It's not brutal by any means, but not his greatest game. And then, of course, has the injury at the end of it. Sits out week two, sits out week three, and now comes back in week four, probably not 100% and probably a little bit rusty, is not gone through a full practice, since he has been injured. So he has not been anything except limited since he has gotten, any sort of go ahead to go and practice in these practices that he did, actually participate in. So what sort of rust is there? What sort of mobility is there? And just how effective can he be leading this offense? Now, Jordan was phenomenal last year against Minnesota in week 17 against this Brian Flores defense. Do I think this version of Brian Flores' defense is better? I do. Do I think that what, made Jordan have a couple of those really special plays a season ago was some of his mobility? I do. And that's going to be the really interesting factor here. I think Jordan's ability to get into the right play call, to make the checks at the line, to be able to communicate with Josh Myers and the offensive line for what needs to be done, and the tight ends and running backs for that matter, the wide receivers at the checks on the outside. I think his veteran leadership, his calm, even-keeled demeanor, I think all of that in the face of some extreme pressure at times with the Minnesota Vikings is going to pay massive dividends. But if he doesn't quite have that mobility, if he's a little bit rusty, maybe not hitting on some throws, and maybe just all of a sudden, this is a quarterback in Jordan, right? Didn't play really all except one drive in the preseason through two passes, a little swing play, and then, of course, the deep ball to Dontavian Wicks, but didn't play at all really except for one drive in preseason, which was, again, 3 plays, and then plays the one game in Brazil and then has 2 weeks off. Like, there's probably going to be a little bit of rust there. And this is a game that you can kind of ill afford to have any sort of rust. And the other thing too is when you come back from injury where you maybe have a little bit of that rust, what kind of is the thing that can happen? You're not used to the game speed. And there is no team right now that is speeding up the quarterback more than the Minnesota Vikings. So that is going to, again, be a massive key to this game and should be the number one thing that everyone is watching early in this one. Just how does Jordan look? Now, the beautiful side here is that Matt has been near genius level of finding easy throws for Malik Willis and his quarterbacks. Even going back to week one, Matt was able to scheme open some easy stuff. So Matt will be ready. He'll be prepared. He's going to put Jordan in a position to succeed, but Jordan's going to have to go out and execute as well. And I don't think he needs to be at his A game. I don't think you need an A+ performance from Jordan Love to win this game, but he's got to be good. And I think that's, again, going to be a huge thing to keep an eye on, especially early, is just how effective can Jordan Love be and how is that injury affecting him in this game. Number 2, the Packers corners. So let's kind of go through how this could play out. My expectation, well, we know Eric Stokes is going to be one of the starters, right? Well, for the sake of this, we'll say that Valentine and Jair are out. And if either of them play, we'll be pleasantly surprised. But Stokes is going to be one of the corners. The base corner, meaning when they're in a true 4-3 and only have 2 corners on the field, is going to be very interesting. They have cross-trained Keyshawn Nixon for that spot. Will it be Stokes and Nixon, or will it be Stokes and Ballantyne? I think those are probably your 2 choices. I don't think Haddon or Robert Rochelle are going to bounce either of those players. Now, Keyshawn is a primary slot, and Ballantyne has worked quite a bit in the slot, but my expectation still would be it's probably either Nixon or Ballantyne. I don't know who it is. Pick your poison there. Pick your player. It could be either of them, truly. I'll say maybe Ballantyne, but it would not shock me if it's Nixon. And then, of course, Stokes on the other side. Now, in nickel, probably pretty easy. I expect to see Nixon in the slot, Stokes, and then Ballantyne on the outside. Could they play a little bit of Robert Rochelle? Maybe. But I think what they learned from Ballantyne last year was that he can come into some of these big games against big-time opponents and hold his own. So I think that's probably what you're looking at. And then in dime, probably Javon Bullard added to the slot and Evan Williams back at safety. That would be my guess in this one. Now, how Jeff Hafley handles this corner position is now completely different. Do you put Eric Stokes as your number one corner on Justin Jefferson primarily? And then do you even have any sort of comfort playing any true man-to-man coverage? I don't know that you can. First of all, Kevin O'Connell is phenomenal against man coverage. Number two, you've got Jefferson and Addison going against Stokes and probably Ballantyne. That's not an ideal situation to go man-to-man. So that's going to be a really interesting aspect of this as well. So we know that Jeff wants to be a little bit more aggressive. We know that he wants to play a little bit of man coverage here and there. This might be a very heavy zone-oriented scheme from Green Bay in this one. And again, Kevin O'Connell will be prepared for that as well. I'm very intrigued to see what Jeff Hafley can cook up. We saw Matt LaFleur for 2 weeks without his starting quarterback just still go out and outcoach the other opponent and say, I got this. I'm going to go out and put a game plan together that can win us the game. Now it's sort of Jeff Hafley's turn to say, all right, I've got no Carrington Ballantyne, I've got no Jair Alexander, and I'm going to have to put a game plan together to try to stop Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison with arguably without your top two corners, your outside corners. That's going to be a problem. And it's going to be, again, up to Jeff Hafley to figure out how he wants to go about doing that. I still don't think you can get predictable. I don't think you can just go, like, you're going to have to change things up, especially against Jefferson. But this is a big task and a huge undertaking for Jeff Hafley to figure out how you can get a winnable performance from the cornerback group without Ballantyne and without Jair Alexander. Number three, this sort of goes hand in hand, but Xavier McKinney is going to be a huge player to watch in this one. Not because I'm expecting him to get his fourth interception in 4 games. Could he? Yes. Not because he's a phenomenal player, which he is, but because when you have absences in the secondary, specifically at the corner position with Ballantyne and Jair, potentially out in this one, somebody has to step up, sort of rally the troops, and just make sure that everyone is on the same page. And to me, that's where Xavier McKinney is going to come in huge. A secondary of Stokes, Nixon, Ballantyne, and Bullard next to him, it's okay. It's not great. It's okay. But with Xavier McKinney pairing with him and him being that guy that's the backbone of that defense, especially in the secondary, he can cover for a lot of mistakes. He can give Eric Stokes and Corey Ballantyne a little bit more comfort of like, hey, I know it's going to be a tough matchup. I got your back. And even if you give up a completion, I'm going to be there to stop him right away. It's not going to be a 70-yard gain. If they throw it deep, I'll be there. I think this is a huge game for Xavier McKinney. This is one of the reasons you go out and give him that huge contract. So I expect this to be not necessarily even a massive on-field performance from Xavier McKinney in a interceptions, tackles, sacks sort of way. I expect it to be a massive game for Xavier McKinney to rally that defensive backfield, get everyone on the same page, and make sure everyone's going in the right direction at the right times for the right reasons, and nobody's making any of these crazy mistakes. I think that communication on the back end is going to be huge for Xavier McKinney. Number 4, matchup that I think Green Bay has a great opportunity to win, Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt versus Brandell Ingram and Bradbury on the interior of the offensive line. This Vikings interior of the offensive line, it's not that good. They can hold their own a little bit here and there, but to me, Devontae Wyatt and Kenny Clark need to eat in the middle of that defense. Now, Carl Brooks and TJ Slayton, you can certainly put in that conversation as well, but I would expect Wyatt and Clark are probably your 2 primary snap getters this week against Minnesota if all goes according to plan. I think Devontae Wyatt can beat those guys clean, and Kenny Clark has dominated Garrett Bradbury and Ed Ingram, quite frankly, over the course of his career, at least the careers of Bradbury and Ingram. Bradbury's not going to want to see Kenny Clark in this one, but Kenny's had a rough start to the year. Devontae Wyatt's still sort of coming into his own, although he's having a very nice year. But these are matchups that Green Bay can win, and they need to win. They got to get Sam Darnold off his spot, make him feel uncomfortable, not give Aaron Jones that wiggle room in the middle of the field. This is a huge game for Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, and to an extent, TJ Slayton and Carl Brooks as well. Number 5, the Packers tight ends. First of all, there is opportunities to throw in the flat. And I think we could see Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave get some of these passes in the flat. Can you turn upfield? Can you get extra yardage out of it? But more importantly, Brian Flores is great at getting mismatches of defensive ends, specifically Grenard, Van Ginkel, and those sort of guys, and Dallas Turner, matched up against tight ends and running backs. And I think Tucker Kraft can hold his own. I think Ben Sims can probably hold his own. But what Luke Musgrave can do in blocking situations, that's been a bit of an issue for him from time to time. So you don't want Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel and those guys matched up one-on-one with Luke Musgrave. But Brian Flores usually finds ways to make those matchups work. So I'm intrigued as to see how they use Musgrave in this one. Do they go a lot of 11 and just use Kraft? Or could we even see some Ben Sims in some 12 personnel and maybe taking a few more of those snaps from Luke Musgrave in this one to get two better blocking tight ends out on the field? Number 6, I talked about this yesterday, so I won't go into it in massive detail here, but how Green Bay plays their safeties in this one. If you play that single high safety, you're daring them to throw to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. I'm not sure that's the gambit that you want to play in this one. But if you go too high, you're saying you're probably going to be able to run with Aaron Jones because Green Bay's run defense has not been good when they are in too high safety. So how Jeff Hafley goes about figuring out in what situations, in what scenarios do we want to come up, play that extra safety in the box, or do we want to stay in that cover 2 shell and try to limit the explosive plays for Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison? Keep a really close eye on that. I think that's going to go a long way in who's dictating terms when the Vikings are on the field on offense. Red zone offense. Red zone offense for Green Bay has been really bad. Red zone offense across the league has been brutal. If you get in the red zone, you got to find ways to score touchdowns. That's not breaking news, but it has been very difficult for teams so far this season to find the end zone when you get in to the red zone. So explosive plays, if you can get a 80, 90, 70-yard touchdown, whatever it might be, those are going to be huge. But when you get in the red zone, you have to convert those into touchdowns and not settle for field goals. Green Bay's offense has been a bit sluggish in that regard. Hopefully getting Jordan back will help, but they have got to get those touchdowns when they get in the red zone. Number 8, Aaron Jones. The return of Aaron Jones to Lambeau. He's going to be extra motivated. His blockers are going to be blocking extra hard for him. I don't have any doubt about that whatsoever. He's going to try to do the Lambeau leap. If he can score a touchdown, you got to find a way to keep him in check. And you want to do so with your 7 guys up front, not having to drop that safety into the box. If they can't do that, it's going to change everything. And it's going to set up some play action shots to Jefferson and Addison. That's probably not the game that you want to play. So I think we are going to see 2 high safeties quite a bit. And I think we're going to have to see these linebackers and defensive linemen really step up to stop Aaron Jones and not allow him to have a big game. Number 9, offensive communication and cadence. Tons of blitzing, tons of chaos. And it's going to take everyone being on the same page and a ton of communication. From the offensive line to the tight ends to the quarterback, those are, and the running backs too, for that matter. They're going to have to be in constant communication with how many is Minnesota blitzing? Where do we want to slide the protection left or right? We also have to be careful because they can kind of play off of that a little bit. So those are all going to be massively important. But miscommunications, right, can lead to false starts, penalties, and illegal procedures, illegal motions. And then you get into those 2nd and 3rd and longs, and you can't have that either. So the communication is going to be huge. And then Jordan Love's cadence with that too. Like, you got to be able to get the Minnesota Vikings to tip their hands a little bit of who's blitzing and who's not. Cadence can go a long way, but it's just another thing where you cannot jump off sides on your own or have a false start on your own because you do not want to get in those 2nd and 3rd and longs, and adding 5 yards to your amount of yardage that you need to get because of that is going to set you very much behind the 8 ball. Number 10, because of what we just said with the offensive communication, Josh Myers. Whether it's Love or whether it's Malik Willis, even more if it's Malik Willis, but even with it being Love, Josh Myers is the communicator in the center of that offensive line. He's got to have everyone on the same page, understanding everything. And we saw, even when Minnesota blitzed or brought only 3 guys and dropped everyone else, they would get advantageous looks. And sometimes the center was just lost of where to go. And a guy would come right up the middle, and it was only a 3-man rush. This is going to be a massive game for Josh Myers. Number 11, Quay and McDuffie. Those 2 linebackers have had some ups and downs. This is an Aaron Jones game where you could see those 2 high safeties like we talked about. And Quay and McDuffie are going to have to be stout against the run. If they can't get off blocks, if they can't go make plays, it's going to be a situation where you have to bring that extra safety down. And now you're letting Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson get one-on-ones on the outside. And that's not the way that you want to live either. And then number 12, what are we really showing up for in this one? I know it's the players. I get it. It's what happens on the field. But this is a coaching matchup that is gorgeous. Brian Flores versus Matt LaFleur. 2 people that are just absolutely cooking right now, and Jeff Hafley versus Kevin O'Connell, where I think both of these, the Vikings offense and the Packers defense, are trending in the right direction. And I think O'Connell's a great offensive mind, and Hafley's shown over the last couple of weeks, he's got a couple of pretty good ideas up his sleeve as well. I love these matchups from an X's and O's standpoint. It's a game worth nerding out over because of these matchups, and that's what I'm going to be watching the most is, yes, the players on the field, but the chess masters that are moving all the pieces and getting them in the right positions. Who can do it better is going to be really, really fun to watch in this one. My prediction, I know over the last 2 days, I have been extremely complimentary of the Minnesota Vikings. They have played very good football. I really enjoy watching the way that they play stylistically on defense. I think it's a really fun system to run and watch. Yes, it has its holes. Yes, you can take advantage of it. And I think Green Bay will have those opportunities. Just because we say that there are some things that Minnesota does really well does not mean that there's not things that Green Bay does very, very well. And Green Bay does a lot of things incredibly well, including what Matt LaFleur is cooking on offense right now and how Jeff Hafley has these guys rallying to the football and taking the ball away. I like Green Bay in this one. I think Minnesota is going to be in a very good spot. I think they're going to be able to continue towards a playoff push. I think their 3-0 start is no fluke, but Minnesota has played from ahead a lot. And I think Green Bay is going to get ahead in this one. I think they're going to be able to play and dictate terms a little bit more. And because of that, I expect Green Bay to come out on top with a final score, Packers 26, Vikings 24. As of right now, as I'm recording this, the Packers are 3-point favorites. Again, I'm going Packers 26, Vikings 24. So I guess Vikings cover, but the Packers get a huge win at Lambeau, move to 3-1, and get set to take on the Rams next week. I will have a live post-game show not immediately following the game because I'll be at Lambeau. So I will be doing the press conferences and stuff like that and then have to drive home. I'm hoping around 4:30 to 5 o'clock p.m. Central Time, I will do the live show. So keep an eye out for that on the YouTube channel. Enjoy the game, everyone. It is Packers game day. These are always freaking fun. Packers Vikings, this matchup, I have been salivating over this since the very first second that last week's game was over. And you were transitioning to this week, and I've just been sitting here waiting, and now it's here. And I hope it's an awesome game. I hope it's as advertised, and I hope you guys enjoy every second of it as well. I know I will. That will do it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you guys right after the game, again, for a live post-game show. Shout out to our Hall of Fame and All-Pro members, Most Hated Minnesotan, PJ Wynn, John Wild, Shea Bradad, Brandon Paletta, Jennifer Wright, Boom Handle, Donald Lee, Lori Lord, Baby QB, David McCluskey, Donald Decker, Dan Miller, Alex Huang, Arnaldo Espinoza, Peter Ritaka, SoCal Pack, Dan Guestford, Love and Football, Jay Zimmerman, B. Brown, and Jay Foreman. Enjoy the game, everyone. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.